So with that, I just also want to welcome everybody. I know more people are coming in, and also I want to say hi to everybody who's watching online and that will be watching this later as well. So it's great to have you here. Just a small little things for those that are new to WIN. WIN is an organization that was born back in Milano in 1997 and had a first Women International Conference in 1998 in Milano at a place called Palazzo delle Stelline, and that's the Palace of the Stars. And often at WIN we use that as a metaphor also, that each and every one of us is a shining star and that we will shine together and bright up the world. And so that's part of our motto and reason, the être. And of course we do many, many more things also, but our annual conference is the main thing. It's a combination between a summit and a retreat. And then during the year, we have a series of webinars, or these people meetings were always in person before COVID, and now they have a little bit of a mix, a little bit hybrid and a little bit online. And last meeting was all on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now we have women in STEM. The next one will be on women in sport. And then we have also one on well-being and sustainability. These are the 4 meetings this year. And the sport one is also connected to the Olympics in Paris and the need for more gender balance. So the science and technology meeting is also a very hot topic and a very important topic. And I'm so lucky today that we have some really amazing and talented, experienced and wise women with us. And one is Antonella Santuccione, Carmen Delana, and Leila. And we will start today with Antonella Santuccione Shada, because she is also leaving us a little bit before. So I would like Antonella to start speaking today on this topic, and perhaps all the other people who had their video on, maybe can take the video off. I will also put Antonella in pin so we can see her if you have your view on speaker view. So Antonella, it's an honor to have you here with us today. Antonella is a highly accomplished medical doctor, and she's internationally recognized expert in neuroscience, neurological and psychiatric diseases. And she's just done a lot of research. She's won a series of prizes, and she founded the Women's Brain Project, an international nonprofit association studying sex and gender differences in the brain, mental diseases, where she served on a board of directors, and many, many things. And I know she's vice chair of other organizations also. And I'll let her a little bit share her journey. As a first thing, Antonella, a warm welcome to you here with us at WIN. And please, the floor, or the Zoom floor, is yours.
Thank you, Christine. And it was a wonderful surprise for me to receive this invitation and have an opportunity to present the work that we do at the Women's Brain Foundation with your distinguished audience. And it goes without saying that it is a life journey where several people have been contributing. About myself, you said it. I'm a medical doctor and neuroscientist. My passion has always been brain and mental diseases. And when I worked as a regulator, the Swiss Agency for Therapeutic Products Approval, and I've seen with my own eyes that there were profound sex and gender differences in treatment response and safety profile of drugs in women. That was for me the call in 2017 to found an association together with other colleagues, which today, on the 22nd of March, I can proudly share with you and the people on the line that has become officially a foundation. Now, transformations do not happen overnight. They are painful. You have wonderful colleagues that brought you there to that transformation and might stay, others might go, just to tell you that we made it. And we are extremely proud now to take the organization to the next level. What we do, I mean, I don't know if we can go into a screen sharing mode or not.
Yes, we can. I will give you the...
I'd like to present a few slides about our work that we have been doing in the past and what we are planning to do for the future. And before going into, let's say, more of a structured conversation, I'll have to disclose that, yes, unfortunately, I have to leave a bit earlier because life is a journey and sometimes surprises us with unexpected events. So there is a bit of family health to be prioritized this afternoon. I'm trying to share. It's still disabled. Let's see. I'll try once again. Right. Now it should be working. Good. And I am going to screen and I am going to present new slide. Now I hope that I'm going into the right one. And if not, you will forgive me. So I told you, what we're trying to do is to establish a sex and gender precision medicine research institute. Why? Because the focus of the Women's Brain Foundation, it is exactly to understand how sex and gender differences might impact the way we disease, and in particularly the way we disease for brain and mental condition. And yeah, you might have heard already that most of the brain and mental diseases have a sex and gender bias. It's about Alzheimer being more predominant in women. It's about depression, anxiety, migraine, traumatic brain injury. You name it, you have it. You also have an opposite phenomenon that some diseases are more predominant in the male population, such as Parkinson or a stroke that happened maybe in the middle of our life, as well as ALS. Now, is it just about numbers? No, it's also about the burden of the disease. We have done a work together with the Economist Impact Unit that we have been kicking off on the 8th of March last year, and the resonance is still quite high, where we have been summarizing the main learning about published literature that showed that indeed multiple sclerosis, 80% women, so majority of the patients are women, but we also know that often women are lately diagnosed or misdiagnosed when with multiple sclerosis. Stroke. The female population makes up to the 55% of the global burden, and women have specific risk for strokes that are related to their hormonal constellation as well as their life journey. Talk about pregnancy, preeclampsia, the use of contraceptive, or even the hormonal replacement therapy. But even migraine, it's a specific risk for stroke. We already mentioned Alzheimer. Alzheimer is majority female. When we speak about caregiving people taking care of this specific patient population, again, we have that 80% are women. We know that women have a faster cognitive decline when they have Alzheimer. We know, again, women get misdiagnosed or lately diagnosed. And we also know that, unfortunately, very few trials report about sex and gender data disaggregated for Alzheimer's disease. Parkinson, that was a recent learning for me. I'm not necessarily a Parkinson specialist. I've seen Parkinson patients in my early days with dementia, but I was not really focused on this disease. What I've learned is that while we think that the average patient with Parkinson, to our minds, it looked like an 80 years old plus Caucasian white skinned man, actually, it's not true. We have that there is around 6 million people with Parkinson worldwide, and who are men, and 5 who are women. So there is just a little delta. And surprisingly, there is also an increasing number of younger women getting Parkinson. And the main learning we had from patients is that when this patient population is still young, still fertile, will have that based on the fluctuation in the menstrual cycle, the symptoms or even the treatment response might be different. And interestingly enough, also the drugs that are used to treat Parkinson, they don't work in women as good as in men, simply because the majority of the patient study were the men one. And finally, migraine, again, 80% women. Now, we could talk a lot about it, and it's not only about the numbers, it's not only about the burden, but it's also about the symptoms of the disease that differ between sex and gender, clusters, men or women, but even the shadow of those, the way a disease progresses over time, the way we respond to treatment, and the way we adhere to a treatment, with the given treatment. So the focus of our work is exactly finalized to understand all of what I share with you at the moment. And I pause for a second to see if there are questions, because as I said, I have to leave pretty early, and I don't want to also jeopardize the conversation. And then I will go to present you what we do, what we are planning to do in terms of research, and how to work together with us. So this is the problem statement. I'd like to know if there are questions.
Yeah. So one of the things that we talked about also earlier is this health gap. So McKinsey came out with this health gap a while ago, saying, like not only is there a lot less research on women's health, but there is also women are having about 30% more poor health in the course of their lives. And how important it is for you that we sensitize both women and men to do more research on women's health and public funding, of course, and private funding.
Well, all I can say is that we have been one of the first organizations worldwide educating across stakeholders on this unmet need. We are currently working with McKinsey to publish a piece of work about the female brain capital, for example. But we've also shown that there is a need to prioritize preclinical research with inclusion of men and women, which was not the case. So I can proudly say we've been pioneering the discussion. McKinsey, of course, has a strong brand. We are collaborating with them, but it was the team of scientists that WBP with few others around the world that already many years ago start to speak with regulators, with pharmaceutical industry, with academia. We need to change. We need to change. This gap is huge. Of course, so when you can put the economic return of implementing such a change, then the drug developers and the whole industry start to listen to, because there is an immediate returns in terms of economics. We're also doing ourselves studies with the London School of Economics, saying that by some lifestyle changes implemented in women will increase their lifelong health and also the cost for the healthcare system. But of course, it's a problem that is embedded since always in the way we do medicine. It's also about the time to diagnose, as I mentioned. It's also the recognition of female-specific symptoms. So what we are doing, for example, now, we are co-creating at the Women's Brain Foundation an educational series that are aimed to educate healthcare professionals, doctors, and nurses to change the way they practice medicine with women in mind. How we are doing it? We are collaborating with Medscape, which is the biggest medical portal education tool available in the world. They have 5 million doctors in their system and 15 million healthcare providers. So I think that if this is not the way to implement the change, I don't know who else can do it. And so while McKinsey makes the report and studies the status quo based also on what we did before, we are the doers that wants to change on the field the things how they are done. And you need the main actors that are doctors, scientists, that are those who really see the patients, because those are the ones who can change the things. So we can proudly say that we take this very seriously. At the core of our work, we establish this very powerful collaboration to implement across the entire ecosystem the needed change.
Yeah, thank you, Antonella. I have one more question, and maybe there is another question too. I've seen in many industries, many women say, they may say something, and maybe it's not really heard the same way as when a man says it traditionally. And I wonder sometimes too if this particular factor, which is important to research more and more, I mean, in all industries really, that sometimes it's not picked up well enough. And what can we do to make sure that uh, it's heard, if I can put it this way?
I mean, of course, and I don't know if you can still see my slides.
Yeah, you are a co-host now, so it should be possible.
Can you see them, like with August Data and Margaret Thatcher on the screen?
Can't see it, no.
Wait a second. To your question, I mean, what I can say is the following, that to implement a change, I'm a stronger believer that, I'm the strongest believer that the change has to come from within. So while people might not listen to what we want to bring across, it doesn't matter. Repeat the message, be assertive, and be fact data driven. If you bring the fact on the table, no one can counteract the fact. When we started 2017, my mentor at the time told me that's not really needed. Another women organization. And I said, look, Alzheimer is women. I didn't know when I was practicing with my patients that majority of the patients were female, simply because I was doing my job and I wasn't paying attention to a specific female need versus a specific male need. When I got to learn about it, I went back and changed the way I did things. And here you see, I mean, women, even Thatcher got Alzheimer, but do we really know about it? Women are not really the forefront of even the media and what you see across media. There are always majority men. So how to change and how to revert? I think to co-create, to educate, to bring the data and facts on the table, and also give some rest to those who have been doing things till today the way they are, which means I think we all deserve an opportunity. Maybe now it's the time to let the male population rest a little bit and have the female population take a collective leadership in reshaping the way the world is conceived. And I refer also to decision making in governments, where we need not just one woman, like with Thatcher here, but a collective of female, potentially having a higher rate of empathy. We know from neuroscience that women have a higher rate of empathy as compared to men. So maybe that's what this planet needs. On the contrary, I just want to bring attention to the slides. What we have learned, thanks to the data from the OECD, is that while majority, for example, all over the world of women have, the patients that have Alzheimer are women, we also know, unfortunately, that those women are the ones that have the highest rate of institutionalization and the highest prescription of antipsychotic. Now, being institutionalized in a elderly home or nursery home, it's okay. To have a higher prescription of antipsychotic, it's a proxy indicator of poor standard of care, meaning women end up in nursery home and their brain gets shut down. So we need to change this because we need specific female care, and that's what we're doing at our organization. And yeah, you mentioned the McKinsey data. This is from the McKinsey report. It's just a huge opportunity to basically invest in this area. We need as well investment for our research. So if there is any opportunity of supporting our educational campaign, now we're launching a campaign about Alzheimer and women. During the month of May and June, we will be fundraising for supporting our independent research, meaning we do independent work. No one is branding it if not our brains. And it's really aimed to understand those differences and improve healthcare system with women in mind, focused also for women.
Thank you, Antonella. We will share your link in the newsletter after, and to all the people watching the streaming and the recording, and all the other people who didn't come into our BIN community. So
yeah, that's about the campaign that I was referring. There is
yeah.
one which is currently active, and then we're going to have a new one that will be launched in May, June and May. So if you want to donate, just take a little picture to this barcode and support the work we do. And follow us, of course, on social, because that's also part of our work. We do a lot of workshop, a lot of educational events to educate across the system on this unmet need, from preclinical up to policy, decision-making, and lay public.
Yeah, we can put the link also in the chat box. So yeah, can you repeat the link? And I can write it here.
Sure. So, I think it didn't work, my
No, it didn't work. I didn't see
I'm
it.
so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll try once again.
Yeah, there it is. Now we see it.
Exactly. Do you see what I see? Do you see the
Yeah.
Wonderful? And I'll put the link into the chat. So I will be, of course, very happy if we could be supported and unterstützt, what the German says. So I have to unfortunately leave. I told you there is a little bit of a medical emergency in the family. I have a doctor appointment in 10 minutes down the hill. And I want to once again thank you for this opportunity. Sorry if it was a bit in a rush, but as I said, it's
thank
an
you,
active time.
and
Thank you.
if you can stop the share screen, that would be lovely also. If you can do that.
Sure.
Thank you. So thank you for joining us, and thank you. So she's gone. So now I would like to ask first of all, I'd like to welcome all the people who just have joined us. And so we are in the middle of this wonderful presentations here. And I'd like to ask Leila and Carmen to come. And for those of you that are just entered the room, I want to share this thing that I think is so great. If you go down to your lower left corner of your screen, and you look at the video icon, you go to video setting. There are two columns. Second column, the one most to the right, you go down and you say, don't show the you hide non-video participant. This way you only see the people that are video participants, okay? And then we ask all of you that joined but are not on the panel to take your screen off, and then we can see just the speakers. So welcome, Leila and Carmen. It's a great honor to have you both here. And just a quick little introduction. Carmen, she's Dr. Carmen Delana. She's a medical doctor and endocrinologist with international experience in a wide variety of pharmaceuticals, clinical and research settings, spanning respiratory diseases, internal medicine, endocrinology, and cardiology. So she has so incredibly many experiences. And Leila, she has her experience more in technology. And currently she's the global head of value realizations at Aon. But before joining Aon, she was the chief information officer at Gildan, and she has been in Coca-Cola and other organizations as the chief digital officer. So many experiences, other experiences also. And these ladies have won prizes and they have done research papers and many exciting things. So it's amazing to know all of you are existing here on the planet and also with us today on the webinar, and for everybody watching and watching after. So let's start with Carmen. Carmen, can you share a little bit about your journey also? As our first question, how did you get into all of this? And
yeah, sure. Thank you, Christine. And first of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm truly honored and excited. You know, hearing Antonella explaining her work is really amazing. And as you heard, I'm a physician as well, endocrinologist by training. I started my career early on in clinical practice. So I worked in the hospital treating patients, and then I transitioned later on in my life into the pharmaceutical industry environment. And I'm now responsible for the medical affairs function of Chiesi Pharmaceuticals. For me, I want to share a little bit my personal experience, Christine, because for me, opting for science, especially pursuing studies in medicine, felt almost a natural choice. I was lucky. I was raised in a family of scientists with my father being a surgeon, and I was immersed in the atmosphere of science from a very young age, from the very beginning. So the influential figures that in my family have been significant in shaping my choices then in the future, and not only, I would say, not only in the inner loop of the family, but also throughout the teachers and mentors that I've encountered from a very early stages. I think this really motivated me to pursue my aspiration without any gender-related hesitation or maybe adaptation to the environment. And probably it wasn't until later in life that I realized, I fully grasped the significance of having this inspiration and encouragement for my upbringing at the beginning. And so I think this is a topic that we wanted to discuss because the exposure and the early exposure to curiosity, to science and to STEM topics is a very relevant motivator for future choices, and for this has been my experience. Following the clinical experience in the hospital, as I was saying, I joined Chiesi, and the reason why I've chosen Chiesi because it was a very, already at that time, a very research-oriented international biopharmaceutical company. And of course, many years have passed since then, but now we are a benefit corporation, B Corp certified, and our focus on research is stronger than ever. If you think that in 2023, we invested about 24% of our revenues into research and development. So an environment that for us, for scientists, is very cultivating, you know, the love for science, and is in the DNA of the company. One thing that I wanted to stress is that, for example, we have about 57% of women as overall population in our company. But if you look at the researchers population, we have 65% of women. So we are outnumbering the men. And this is really very close to the company's identity of continuous effort to deliver innovation through diversity. As so important is to have diverse representation than to foster innovation, which is another point that to me is very relevant. And one of my work, I mean, I'm working in Chiesi also as a member of the Global Diversity and Inclusion Committee, but I think going back to what Antonella was saying, you know, having representation of women throughout the life cycle, also when we study a medicine, for example, from research to preclinical to clinical development as well, up to the commercialization of a product, is so important. The representation of women is throughout. And, you know, there is a lot of discussion now about representation of women in clinical trials, right? So going back to the data gaps and going back to the fact that it is important to include the women when we study and when we do evidence generation and produce data. I think we need more women for fairness, first of all, and equity. Yeah. Do you have any question, Kristen?
No, I was just thinking that's also true, you know.
Absolutely. And we need more women also because we know that the results need to be generalizable, right? I mean, as we heard from Antonella, we need this result to be applicable to all our people in society. So the representation is important. And finally, we want we know that women may have differences in terms not only biological, genetic or epigenetic factors, but also difference in social determinants of health, and this impact this aspect very much.
Yeah.
So, Kristen, I think my, you know, the bottom line of this specific focus on clinical trials is that if we want more women in trials, we also need more women leading trials and designing trials and working so that's why it's so important also cultivating leadership initiatives and cultivating role models in the fields of clinical development and evidence generation. And so I wanted to stop here if you have any questions.
Exactly. And it was so exciting. I mean, also what Carmen said about her early upbringing and being surrounded in science and also curiosity. I can almost see her, you know, climbing trees and being curious about, I don't know, or the chemical, you know, set and trying out the explosives in the kitchen table. But all of these things, I think you're so right. It gets so stimulated. Another thing you said also that is so refreshing to hear, you have this love for science, and that Chiesi has 65% women in the research team. I mean, that's amazing also. So I'm so glad we also work with Chiesi and with you. Leila, are you still here? She disappeared for me. Yeah.
Yes, I am here. Sorry, I just went off video so that Carmen has the stage. Sorry.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
And Carmen will ask you a few more questions, but let's hear also from Leila a little bit now. Leila, what is it about your journey? And then I will ask both of you a few more questions, and everybody also on the call. If you have some questions in the very end, we'll open up also to you, and then we go in the small groups before we close, just so you know the program. Leila, please share your journey.
Kristen, so thank you very much for inviting me. It's great to meet Carmen and Antonella. And although we are in different parts of STEM, the problems seem to be very much the same, right? We in technology, women are representing maybe 1, maybe 5% of the total population. In certain parts of technology, it's even non-existent in cybersecurity, for example. So it seems like we are dealing with same problem, different context. But I echo what Carmen said. I think many of us, and the reason we get into STEM, any parts of STEM, is a little bit of upbringing. And what I'm noticing is a lot of the conversations on diversity and inclusion, and when we look at some of the leaders who are paying more attention or who are really investing in this, especially male colleagues, they definitely have daughters. So they are trying to change the world for their own daughters, right? So my my background, I'm originally from former Yugoslavia, so I'm from the Bosnian part of Yugoslavia. My family migrated during one of the wars, and I ended up moving to Turkey. That's where I lived, and then moved to US, back and forth a little bit, very multinational, international, but immigrant. And my grandpa, from as far as I remember, 5 years old, he kept calling me my engineer. So that's how I grew up. He kept calling me my engineer. He kept telling me that I will be leading and managing his family business. You know, I had no idea what it was at that time. But Carmen, exactly like you said, it must have engraved, right? I totally ingested that. And I did become an engineer, some electrical and computer engineer by background. I specialize in automation and control systems, but I spent all of my career in the enterprise side of the house. So Carmen, you had you worked hands-on and then you moved to enterprise. I went from academia straight into an enterprise side of the house. And Kristen, like you highlighted, I have been in different parts of the world, serving different industries, very heavily GE in my background, GE healthcare actually. So the topic around health and women health is very dear to my heart. And then Coca-Cola, different industry, and Givaudan, manufacturing again, and finally Aon, where we serve our clients and trying to help our clients to model and manage their risks. Throughout my career, I never left technology. And I was always one of the few, the only one in the classroom. You hear this a lot from a lot of women in STEM, so nothing different. You are either the only one or maybe few women in the classroom, and then only woman in the leadership, usually only woman on the stage in the conference, at the conference. However, what I noticed, and I was in early 40s, I was in Africa together with GE at a very special place in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, at the African Union, and we were running a leadership program. And my aha moment as a woman to contribute more to society and to other girls and women was that was the trademark event for me. So I ended up meeting a woman, a gynecologist from Australia who moved in 40s with her husband to Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, to form her own clinic to help women with obstetric fistula. That's pretty much apparently common in Africa because 75% of the population still lives in rural, and especially women or girls who end up with pregnancy or marriage in early ages. They don't have access to health as much as those in developed countries have. What was very strange for me is I never heard about that defect. It's not even a disease, actually, it's a defect. And what's worse is these girls and women, they are expelled from their homes, society, their husbands, their families leave. So this doctor established a clinic to treat, but more importantly, I think what was very impactful for me is that post the treatment, she was making sure that they were gaining a skill and she was helping them to be integrated back into society. She even had one of her patients who she invested in became the doctor and took over the clinic. That was an aha moment for me in my early mid 40s, where I said, I'm not doing enough. Just being the only woman in technology, having the title of chief digital officer, etc., does not make you a role model. So I started my own kind of little activities and activism within the corporation. And I was lucky because GE was very much accommodating that. So I started many women related and supporting women activities to support women. And I joined G Girls Foundation. So Carmen, going back to something you said, yes, you are absolutely right. And what we are noticing is usually girls, they don't make up their mind on where to go and to take STEM or not in high school, but that decisions are shaped and that experiences are shaped very early on. So during G Girls Foundation, we were trying to help girls in middle school, high school. We created camps. We were bringing all our science and technology know-how, and we were supporting them and their families for a weekly durations. And then we were following up through the G Foundation. We were trying to accommodate their university education, especially those who are continuing to be interested. But what's funny is usually in the early on when we were meeting with these girls, they would think we are geeks. So they would say, we thought you were geeks. And then at the end of the camp, they were saying, well, you are still geeks. But you are not as geek as I thought you were. So that was kind of the feedback. And while I was part of G Girls Foundation, we met with a lot of NGOs in the US who are helping girls at very early, like I said, elementary school. Now it moved to elementary school to influence their decision to join STEM. And that's something that I did. And then I moved to later part of women's life, and I joined, and I'm on the board of an NGO that supports women to join workforce. Especially women who had to leave work because of health issues, taking care of parents or taking care of kids. And going back and joining workforce is very difficult. And this is where I connect to technology, especially with the progress of technology right now and the speed of progress of technology. We do know that a lot of skills are becoming very quickly obsolete.
Yeah.
Everybody thought so many jobs would go away and software development would stay. Well, right now software development is being disrupted. So we were training everyone to learn different programming skills, and now that's being disrupted with AI. But that's kind of my connection to technology and how I support women to gain skills to join the economy through my NGO. Yes.
Awesome, Leila, and you in a way also covered here how we can get more girls to join STEM and so on. There's one thing I want to pick up on what you said. You said there is an accelerated speed of change and disruption, and having women in the positions of decision-making power at the moment could be important, and also that we dare to speak up and that we bring with us also integrity. I think many people are very worried about a lot of the new progress too, that if it doesn't come with ethics, if it doesn't come with integrity, what would happen?
Absolutely.
And why could women leaders be the agents of change for this new part, and why is it so important that really this is happening now and collectively also?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Carmen, maybe you want to share something around this that I just said.
Yeah, no, I absolutely, Christine. I think that one point that to me is very relevant in how the narrowing the gender gap is becoming more and more important and connected with fostering innovation and also in a way fostering perspectives that helps also having potentially a team that is more equipped also to understand with empathy what is the problem. Because I think we all agree on the fact, right, that more women and being active innovators has a benefit for the society, has a benefit for the economy. You mentioned, of course, also the McKinsey report. But I think what is relevant is really understand also how we can make it sure that this is increased gradually. So the integrity and transparency piece, and the fact that you bring perspectives that can be connected with the problem will definitely increase the possibility that we are able then to solve problems in the society. Yeah. So I think this connection to solving significant challenges and having women there in the table to do it is very important in these regards.
Thank you, Carmen. Any views from you, Leila, on this part?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say empathy and humility as well, like Carmen. When we looking at the technology, whether it's for the enterprise, for the society, it doesn't matter which part of the equation you are, whether you are in government, you are implementing technology for citizens, or you are in an enterprise and you are implementing technology for clients and colleagues. What we try to do is put empathy and humility. And I think you end up hearing these more from women leaders. I don't know if that's engraved in our blood, but I quoted something Antonella said. I know she's not here, but she said, should we have men take a, rest a little bit, and women started to be more in the foreground. I love that. So I think definitely that empathy and humility comes much, much stronger. And what we tend to drive is, how do we bring everybody along in this journey? So it's not just about, we are not mechanical about what technology can bring. Yes, it can bring a lot of, efficiency and savings, shareholder value, and all of that. But we usually tend to focus more on how do we bring everybody along. And especially in this fast-pacing change in the world, Carmen, you said learning and curiosity, that has to be continuous, right? We have to keep learning new skills, and we have to cope with what's happening, understand what's happening, and how do we gain skills so that we remain relevant. And definitely that's where we seem to add a bit more value, that empathy and humility. And it's not about men or women, it's just about that feminine skill set that I think the whole world requires more of these days. Not just enterprises, obviously, right? Society, for sure.
For sure, Leila. And Carmen, any thoughts from you also on how do we stay relevant now, and how do we stay agile to all these changes and future oriented, but at the same time grounded also in
absolutely. I think there are, several ways we can do in that. And we discuss about starting early on. I want to stress this point because we need to start early on, but then continue during the lifespan, right? It's a journey, it's a lifestyle, it's a life journey. So, for example, one aspect that to me is very relevant, we did women's progression webinars in our companies, and there were topics, Christine, that we have in common, also going outside Chiesi, outside our organization, but discussing, for example, with representation from scientific societies as well. Women representation that shared with us how mentoring role models and how networking opportunities are exceptionally important. And whatever you do as a woman, especially where you are in a male-dominated environment, these aspects are much more impactful than we can think. And sometimes we can find this common ground, which I felt was particularly intriguing for us. So understanding and sharing the issues, the challenges, and so we had some of these webinars together with the scientific groups, and we shared together the fact that, for example, it's difficult for a woman, especially with young kids, to go to conferences during the weekend, and most of the conferences are in the weekend because of the family, right? So the life balance with the work, and we feel like it's so important to have a good network to advance in our careers. So these are, I think, going back to your question, Christine, defining key aspects like role model, networking, and leadership development in the continuum of the experience of women in their career from the beginning is the way, in my opinion, to do it.
Thank you so much. I think you mentioned so many awesome things and also important, both from the values you mentioned of humility, but also starting early and sharing, which is in some ways also the caring. It's just also what we do at WIN. And when we have the big global conference, we put together also women and some men too, in an increasing number, who want to embrace those feminine qualities that exist in all humans. But from many different fields, we come together and we realize all these things that we can share. And by sharing, I feel also we accelerate not only our learning, but even our awakening to what is possible somehow. Already know we learn from each other even here today, and it's like, oh, she did that and she's doing something else and it's possible. I think this role modeling in this moment is so important. If there's one statement you want to give of advice or sharing before we close this part, please let me know, or maybe you feel it's complete.
Maybe Christine, I can jump in. I want to go back very briefly to the health gap, gender gap.
Yes.
Because I think, what you said about, the Valentina Sartori's and the McKinsey team that published that report, they use a sentence that I really like. I mean, the challenge is not just adding years to life, but also adding life to years. And this is because, as we said, poor health in women can impact also occurring during their working years. So it's not just at the end, but so we talk about health span, not lifespan anymore.
I love it. Health span. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and I want to mention, because today is World Asthma Day, so I wanted to mention asthma as an example, because we generally take the example of coronary artery disease to increase the awareness about maybe underrepresentation and lack of data from women. But for sure, asthma is another area, is a chronic disease that affects 260 million people worldwide, where there are differences between women and men. And we see more severe symptoms, different response to treatment. So I wanted to mention this because today is Awareness Day for asthma as well.
Oh, thank you for mentioning that. And so many people have asthma. This is why important to create awareness around that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Leila, so last statement from you.
Last statement. I think unconscious bias and blind spots. We are, I think we are all responsible in the society, whatever the position we have in the society, and sometimes we're a daughter and sister and a mother, right? And when especially those out there who have kids, making sure that we are helping our kids grow with less of these biases, right? I have so many friends who have daughters and they have stopped making their daughters think they're going to be a princess. So I think that is very important as we help the new generations, so that we don't talk about diversity anymore. I hope we don't have to talk about inclusion anymore, but that becomes natural part of society and enterprises. And that leads to so many of these topics that I learned today about the health gap and health issues that I learned today, but many of other problems that we have, right? Health gap, pay gap, right? It translates into so many things that impact different parts of society. So if we can help each other and help our organization, society, with the help of educating our kids on having less of these biases that maybe we grew up with, that would be hopefully a difference making for the world in the coming years.
Thank you, Leila, and thank you, Carmen. And I think this is so important, this point of educating, and also for all of us that if some of you may feel you have reached a certain place, but there could also be regressing. We were just seeing pictures of women free in Afghanistan or at the beach in Iran, and they can no longer be in that city. So sometimes it goes forward and then it goes back also. So we have to stay vigilant all the time. And then I want to thank you again for coming and for being part of this. And if there's anything with addresses you need to connect, write to us. I'll connect you all from your little groups. And I hope to see you again. 22nd of May, we have an event inside United Nations in Geneva. You're all welcome if you can be there. And most importantly, we are gathering again in October on the 9th, 10th, and 11th for the global conference. And I really want this topic also to be on the agenda more than ever, and how we can stay curious and invent social science, technology, all sorts of things. So it's being almost like social artists and scientists together as we create a new world that is more balanced and more harmonious and more peaceful and sustainable, because my God, it's so needed. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you next. Bye. Thank you, everybody. The team also helped.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody on the streaming, on the video. Bye.